Well, it's great to have you here in the province of Saskatchewan. I want to say this at the outset of my remarks, and they're going to be relatively brief because I hope we have a chance later on for an exchange and a panel discussion, but I want to begin with a thank you. Thank you to everybody in this room who is already invested here, who have invested their money, and perhaps they have advised the investment of others' money into this province. Thanks to everybody in this room that has already played such an amazing role in the dynamic mining industry in the province of Saskatchewan, because all that you just heard in terms of the relative economic strength of the province, and we haven't been immune to the recession by any means, and we felt its impact, but we did set our job creation record in the middle of that recession, and we set our population record in the middle of that recession, and comparatively speaking, our fiscal balance sheets look pretty solid in Saskatchewan, notwithstanding a bit of a drop in potash revenue last year. None of that credit belongs to the government of Saskatchewan. I would submit tonight it belongs to people in this room. It belongs to the women and men who are in business in this province who risk their money every day, and it belongs significantly to the resource sector, to our mining industry. So I just want to say on behalf of a very grateful province and a grateful government, frankly, thank you for your investment, and thank you for the jobs that you helped create, because that's really the success story in Saskatchewan, not necessarily the government. I want you to know that in Saskatchewan, you will have certainty on this front. In fact, you should know this, that when it comes to resource surcharges, when it comes to the fiscal structure, when it comes to royalties, the only thing you'll ever have to worry about in terms of changes are perhaps incentives that you have advised the government to enact to actually create a better environment for exploration and mining, or just the reduction of across-the-board reduction of those rates. We understand what that means to the economy. That should be the only changes you should worry about from the government of Saskatchewan when it comes to royalties. It's a fundamental reality of our integrated global economy that capital can move very quickly. We saw it again today. We saw it in a big way. And it will change in response to changing circumstances. The evidence was on the television, was on the networks today, but we also seen it recently with the events in Australia. You will know this, and some of you maybe have talked about it already, that just yesterday Rio Tinto announced it's showing plans to spend $11 billion to expand its massive iron ore operations in the western part of that country. The reason, of course, is the decision by the government of that country to introduce a 40% tax on so-called super profits. It's an interesting term, by the way. I don't know what super profits are. I'm kind of a free enterpriser. I think all profits are super. This spring we are implementing a new model of environmental law that provides certainty to organizations and companies, the likes of which are represented in this room tonight. You will know the rules. They will make sense from both an environmental and a development perspective, and you will know that the risk of ever-changing environmental regulation will be mitigated. It will be a results-based system, one of the first on the continent, I think, and again, because it is a first, we'll need to continually improve it, because environmental sustainability is at the top of our priority list, but we think this is a better way to balance growth with that priority. We know in this province that really nothing happens without them. Nothing happens unless it moves. And prior to the election of our government, we were facing, according to the CAA, $1 billion deficit in terms of the state of the roads in our province, highways and rural roads and northern roads. And we're not going to fix that overnight. We're not going to eliminate that deficit overnight, but we've had 3 now record highways and transportation budgets. And even in this budget of restraint that was referenced a moment earlier, we actually have the second highest highways budget ever. We're also providing help to rural organizations in the province for rural roads. This is a top priority for us. We understand it's a top priority not just for industry, but for the communities that are served by industries represented in this room. And we want to do a better job, even than we are doing currently with an additional resource. I can tell you that it's taken a bit of a mindset change, frankly, in some of the provinces. Bill Boyd tells a story when he was an opposition highways critic. He was invited to go along on a bus tour with some American transportation officials that were here from Montana. They were touring around the province of Saskatchewan on our highways, and they were exchanging information as officials are wont to do, and there were politicians involved, including an opposition critic at the time, Bill Boyd, and he remembered that we were coming down the highway, and one of our friends from Montana pointed to a little orange flag and said to one of the highways officials from our province, well, what is that? And the highways official said, well, that's an orange flag. We put that right by the holes that are in the highway. The official from Saskatchewan said, what do you do in Montana? And the official said, well, we fill them in. This province are still ahead of her. We are a proud to have province now linked with British Columbia and Alberta in the New West Partnership, creating, I think, the most powerful economic region in North America. $550 billion of GDP and 9 million people and dynamic economies of resources and innovation agendas. This is a great place to be today in the West and specifically in Saskatchewan. And we want to be a government that's listening to your counsel and to your advice. So we thank you for your interest, for your investment, and we do thank you for that counsel, past, present, and future. We look forward to the rest of the night. Have a great evening.